Notre Dame is coming off of a 9-3 regular season in 2023. All those losses, though, came to good teams. So you kind of feel like this Notre Dame this program is maybe ready to take that next step in 2024. It's a really good roster. Before we get into the game-by-game predictions, let me just kind of give you my thoughts on this team. It's really a team that, if you go through the entire roster, there really are no weaknesses. They maybe aren't elite in a lot of places, but they're really good at pretty much every position. I would say the only area where maybe they're elite is the interior of their defensive line. That's the strength of this team. But really across the board, again, they're really good everywhere. They're like, if you were grading this team, if you grade each position group, it's like a B plus to an A almost everywhere, and then maybe like the interior of the defensive line's an A plus. So there are no weaknesses. I mean, if Riley Leonard steps in here and plays well in this offense, and they can continue to get more balanced on that side of the ball with the defense that you know they're going to have, Notre Dame is a real threat to maybe make a run at a national championship, but definitely make a run at the college football playoff with the 12-team playoff. And it's a schedule that's very favorable. That's going to give them a great shot to do that. The Vegas win total for them, 10.5. So that just goes to show you not only the expectations for this team, but also how favorable the schedule is. You look at the schedule, you've got Texas A&M, Louisville, you've got Florida State, USC, only four games against teams that are have a chance to be. I guess we could see some other teams maybe sneak into the top 25, but four teams that are likely to potentially be top 25 teams, and really no elite teams. They don't play any preseason top 10 team, unless maybe Florida State's in that top 10. But let's get to it. We're going to go game by game. We'll start with Texas A&M, and that's how they will open up the season. Game day going to be there. It's going to be a night game. A very tough place to play, and this is I think just going to be a tough matchup for Notre Dame. You look at the talent on this Texas A&M team, I think they match up really well with Notre Dame. And with a new coach, the new team, yeah, things about that coach, and of course they faced Mike Elko just last year, and these players from watching film from Texas A&M, but together, how does that mesh together? This group of players with this head coach, and a lot of times these first-year head coaches actually have a little bit of an advantage early in the season because there's some unknown there, and you don't know for sure how to prepare. I think that'll help Texas A&M. I think, again, the crowd will be a huge factor. Even though it's a night game, it's probably going to be really hot. And I just think there's a lot of things here that favor Texas A&M. When you compare the teams and you look at the matchups, I think Texas A&M may struggle to stop the run game for Notre Dame, but overall they've got the talent, I think, to match up in most areas. And I think, again, the X factor, home field advantage, Texas A&M with game day there, they get this win. So I'm going with the Aggies here to knock off Notre Dame. Then on September 7th, they'll play Northern Illinois at home. That should be an easy win. Purdue on the road on September 14th. Purdue's just not going to be a great team this year. It's on the road, so it could be a slow start for Notre Dame. Maybe it's one of those weird games where it's close for a while, but Notre Dame just has too much talent, too much depth, too much strength. This team's just going to be too physical for a team like Purdue. I like Notre Dame to pull away and take care of that one easily. And then Miami of Ohio, I think they win that game. Although now, don't sleep on Miami of Ohio. This is a good team out of the MAC, so I don't think this is going to be like a 50-0 blowout, but it's a game that Notre Dame should win, by 20 points or so. And then they'll play Louisville on September 28th, a revenge game for Notre Dame. This time it'll be at home. A Louisville team that I don't think is going to be quite as good as they were last year, but they should still be solid. I think they're potentially a top 25 team. But again, if you just look at the individual matchups across the board, Notre Dame pretty much wins everywhere. They're the better team, the more talented team, again, the more physical team, the deeper team. Everything just points toward Notre Dame. Also, they're playing at home. I like the Irish to win. A fairly close game, but probably a couple of touchdowns. Maybe they win by 10 to 14 points, maybe in that range. They get Stanford next on October 12th. They'll have a bye week before this game. Stanford, really, this is just not a team that's going to compete with the top teams in college football. Don't see Notre Dame having any trouble here. It's at home. I like Notre Dame to win this one, get to 5-1. Then they play Georgia Tech on October 19th on the road. Georgia Tech has a brutal schedule, and they're definitely going to be battle tested by the time they get to this game. Notre Dame, maybe not as much, but again, you look at their schedule, it's not near as tough. But Georgia Tech is just one of those games. Look, I don't have any really X's and O's reasons why Notre Dame would lose this game. But if you look at the two teams, they're pretty similar, really. I think Notre Dame's just a better version of what Georgia Tech is, but they're pretty similar. Brent Key's the guy that's going to be able to get his team motivated. We've already seen that. We've seen Georgia Tech take some strides. Maybe haven't won that big game just yet, but they've come kind of close. Even go back to Georgia, the Georgia game last year. They were much more competitive in that game than they have been in a while. They're playing at home. It's a tough, I don't know why it's a tough place to play, but it just seems to be a tough place to play. It's not the largest stadium, not necessarily the loudest stadium, but I feel like Georgia Tech, it's just going to be one of those nights where they play their best, Notre Dame doesn't, and we see an upset. Again, I don't have any X's and O's reason why Georgia Tech would win this game, but it's just kind of one of those gut feelings. I'm going with the upset here. So I think Georgia Tech pulls off the upset. Then Notre Dame the next week will play Navy. I think they bounce back with a pretty easy win there. Of course, it's always tough to prepare for that triple option, but they do it every year, and so I think they'll be ready to go. Again, at the line of scrimmage, Notre Dame should just dominate. And then you got Florida State on November 9th at home. This is a Florida State team that's kind of similar to Notre Dame. They can really don't have a lot of weaknesses. Maybe the wide receiver position for them, but for the most part, Florida State has reloaded, and they're going to be good at the line of scrimmage. I think it's a pretty even matchup. I think it's one that could really go either way. I kind of trust. I know we haven't seen Riley Leonard in this offense with this team, but I trust him a little bit more in a big game than DJ Uiagalelei. Plus, the game is at Notre Dame, so I think the home field advantage definitely going to be a factor here. I think both teams could struggle to run the ball in this one, and it's going to come down to who can make the plays through the air. And again, I think Riley Leonard's going to do pretty well in this offense. I'm going with Notre Dame playing at home to get this one. Then they'll play Virginia November 16th. Maybe a letdown game. Probably not. It's just Virginia's going to be okay, but they're not going to be anywhere near Notre Dame's level. Notre Dame just a much better team. I think they should roll in this one. Then they'll play Army on the 23rd. Of course, they would have already had to prepare for the triple option with Navy, and so they should be ready to go. Army, they run it really well. It's tough to stop, but again, at the line of scrimmage, Notre Dame is just going to be so dominant that I think Army's going to struggle, and I think Notre Dame wins this one. Then we've got the final game of the season, USC on November 30th. If the season plays out this way, this is potentially a game to get into the college football playoff, because I don't think a 9-3 Notre Dame team with this schedule, I don't think they're getting in the playoff. A 10-2 team should get in, but if we get if we have multiple 10-2 teams fighting for that final spot with this schedule, I don't think there's a guarantee that Notre Dame gets in. We talked about this. This is one of the easier schedules in the Power Four, if you count Notre Dame in the Power Four, even though they're not in the conference. But this is going to be a huge game, and they're going to have to win it, I think, to have a chance to get to the college football playoff. USC, one of the things about USC, if you look at their roster, in a lot of areas, they don't have a lot of depth. The starters for USC are going to be really good. I think the defense is going to be better, and they've got talent on that side of the ball. But do they have depth? And it's impossible to predict what the injury situations would look like at this point. But Notre Dame is a much deeper team. This game will be late in the season, the last game of the regular season. Maybe USC has a few injuries. I think the physicality of Notre Dame, them winning at the line of scrimmage is going to be the difference. And I think Notre Dame's defense will make enough stops. The offense should have a pretty good day. I think they'll be able to run the football, and I think Notre Dame wins this game on the road at USC. So I've got them finishing 10-2. That is my prediction for Notre Dame. Could very easily flip the Georgia Tech and USC games. Other than that, though, I really feel pretty confident about the Louisville and Florida State games at home. And I don't feel super confident, but I do have a pretty good lean towards Texas A&M in that opener. But 11-1 is definitely possible with this schedule. I do not see this team going 9-3, so I think it's 10-2 or 11-1, which does line up with Vegas. I think they lose to Texas A&M and then either Georgia Tech or USC. I'm going with Georgia Tech, but yes, 10-2. That's my prediction. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Give me your thoughts on Notre Dame down in the comments below.